Kate's response was cold and final. You had the chance to work with us when we needed help. You chose to let our people die instead. That choice has consequences. But the most dramatic change came when Director Carl Brooks arrived at the council. With a team of Earth's best scientists, the man who had once worked in complete secrecy now stood before the greatest minds in the galaxy to explain humanity's breakthrough. The lecture hall was packed with alien scientists who had once dismissed human research. Now they sat like students before a master, desperate to understand technology that seemed to break the laws of physics. Brooks stood at the center of the hall, a simple human surrounded by beings who had thought themselves superior. His voice was calm and educational as he began to speak. The key to dimensional manipulation lies in quantum mechanics, he explained. Most species approach this science by trying to control quantum effects. Humans learn to work with them instead. He showed images of the parallel dimensions where Earth's fleet had been built. The aliens stared in wonder at spaces that existed alongside their own reality, but remained completely hidden from conventional detection. We discovered that consciousness itself affects quantum reality, Brooks continued. Human creativity and adaptability allowed us to find pathways through dimensional space that logical, systematic thinking could not reveal. The alien scientists asked desperate questions, but Brooks' answers only made them more confused. Human dimensional science was not based on pure logic or mathematical formulas. It required intuition and imagination in ways that most alien minds could not understand. On Earth, President Maria Santos addressed the planet through a broadcast that reached every human colony in space. She stood in the same office where she had once been forced to appear weak and helpless. Now she spoke with the authority of someone who led the galaxy's newest superpower. Today marks the beginning of a new age for humanity, she said to billions of watching people. We are no longer the victims of alien cruelty. We are equal partners in the galactic community, and we will be treated with the respect we have earned. But Santos also spoke of responsibility and wisdom. Power without purpose is worthless, she reminded her people. We will use our strength to protect the innocent and defend those who cannot defend themselves. We will not become the bullies we once faced. New treaties were signed within weeks of the revelation. Trade agreements that had once favored alien species were renegotiated to give humanity fair terms. The medical technology that had been withheld from dying human colonists was finally shared. The Drakmarian Empire, which had lost an entire fleet to human dimensional weapons, signed a non-aggression pact and agreed to pay reparations for the civilian ships they had destroyed. General Zeke Tor himself delivered a formal apology to the families of those who had died. Admiral Susan Graves oversaw the gradual reveal of humanity's dimensional fleet as more ships phased into normal space to take their positions as guardians of human territory. The sight of these magnificent vessels patrolling the borders of human space sent a clear message to any species that might still consider aggression. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came when Captain Jake Sullivan, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the bridge of his new dimensional cruiser as it patrolled the space around New Geneva. The colony that had once been forced to surrender to alien invaders was now protected by technology that no enemy could threaten. The colonists who had played their parts so well during the Corathan occupation were finally free to show their true strength. Dr. Helen Ross, who had pretended to be a frightened administrator, revealed that she was actually a trained military officer, an expert in alien psychology. We knew this day would come, she told Jake as they watched human ships appear and disappear through dimensional space. Every insult we endured, every moment of humiliation we suffered, was building toward this moment when we could stand as equals in the galaxy. Jake nodded as he looked out at the stars. They thought we were weak because we chose not to fight, he said. They never understood that sometimes the strongest choice is to wait for the right moment to show your true power. Throughout human space, similar scenes were repeated as the truth about Earth's hidden strength became known. Colonies that had been abandoned by alien protectors suddenly found themselves defended by the most advanced ships in the galaxy. Trade routes that had been closed to human merchants were reopened with favorable terms. The species that had once mocked Earth now competed for human friendship and cooperation. They offered technology, resources, and knowledge in exchange for even small insights into dimensional science. But humanity was careful about what they shared, remembering how they had been treated when they were vulnerable. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten for generations. Appearances could be deceiving, and the species that seemed weakest might actually be the strongest of all. The humans had proven that patience, intelligence, and determination could overcome any advantage that others might seem to possess. Earth's children had finally taken their rightful place among the stars, not as subjects or servants, but as the leaders of a new age in galactic civilization. They had faced mockery and emerged victorious. They had endured cruelty and responded with strength. Most importantly, they had proven that humanity's greatest power was not their technology, but their refusal to give up hope even in the darkest times. The universe would never underestimate the people of Earth again. The Drakmarian ships immediately opened fire with their most powerful weapons. Plasma beams that could melt through asteroid armor struck the human vessels with enough force to destroy entire cities. The energy discharge lit up space like a new sun being born, but the attacks passed harmlessly through ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The human vessels flickered between solid and translucent, existing partially in normal space and partially in dimensions the aliens could not even detect. Admiral Thactor stared at his instruments in growing horror. "Our weapons are not connecting," reported his weapons officer. "The enemy ships phase in and out of our targeting sensors." "Impossible," Thactor buzzed angrily. "No technology can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Continue firing until we find their weakness." The Drakmarian fleet unleashed everything they had. Nuclear missiles, particle beams, gravity weapons that could crush planets. All of it struck the human ships and accomplished nothing. The dimensional vessels simply existed where the attacks could not reach them. Admiral Graves watched the alien. Desperation with cold satisfaction. 60 seconds have elapsed, she announced. Since you have chosen violence, we will now demonstrate the consequences of that choice. She turned to her weapons officer. Target the flagship. Dimensional displacement. Surgical precision. Remove all weapon systems, but leave the crew unharmed. Understood, Admiral, replied Commander Peter Walsh. Firing dimensional disruptors. Nothing seemed to happen. No beam of energy shot from the human ships. No missiles flew through space. But Admiral Thactor suddenly found himself standing in a very different place. He was still on his bridge, surrounded by his crew, but something was wrong. Where massive weapon control systems had once filled the walls, there was now empty space. Every gun, every missile launcher, every defensive system had simply ceased to exist. What happened to our weapons? He demanded of his crew, but none of them had answers. One moment the systems were there, the next moment they were gone as if they had never existed at all. Throughout the Drakmarian fleet, the same thing happened to ship after ship. Weapons vanished without explanation. Shield generators disappeared. Engine systems were surgically removed from vessels that continued to float helplessly in space. "How are they doing this?" whispered Admiral Thactor, his voice filled with a fear he had never known before. Admiral Graves provided the answer in her next transmission. "We call it dimensional displacement," she explained to the galaxy. "We can remove objects from normal space-time without affecting the matter around them. Your weapons now exist in a parallel dimension where they can cause no harm. The demonstration continued as human ships showed off capabilities that defied everything the galaxy thought they knew about physics. Vessels appeared and disappeared. At will, attacks came from empty space as human weapons fired from parallel dimensions. Entire Drakmarian ships were moved from one location to another without any force being applied to them. But perhaps the most shocking moment came when Admiral Graves decided to show mercy. Instead of destroying Thector's flagship, she simply moved it 3 light-years away from Earth. In the space of a single second, one moment the massive Drakmarian vessel was part of the fleet surrounding Earth. The next moment it floated alone. In empty interstellar space, its crew staring at instruments that told them they were nowhere near their intended target. "This is impossible," Thector said to his crew, but the evidence was undeniable. Somehow the humans had moved his entire ship across vast distances without even touching it. Back at Earth, Admiral Graves addressed the remaining Drakmarian fleet and the galaxy beyond. "This concludes our demonstration," she said calmly. "The human species is no longer interested in being mocked or threatened. Those who wish peaceful relations will find us generous partners. Those who choose hostility will discover that we are far more dangerous than we appear." The surviving Drakmarian ships fled Earth system as fast as their engines could carry them. Behind them, the human dimensional fleet settled into patrol formations around their homeworld, no longer hiding their true strength from anyone. Throughout the galaxy, alien leaders stared at their screens in shock. The species they had dismissed as primitive had just demonstrated technology that seemed like magic. Every assumption about human weakness had been proven wrong in the most dramatic way possible. The age of mocking Earth was over. A new chapter in galactic history had begun. News of what happened at Earth spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major government knew that humanity possessed technology beyond their understanding. The species they had mocked and bullied had just demonstrated power that made their greatest. Weapons looked like children's toys. Emergency meetings convened on every important world. The Zephyrian High Command gathered in their crystal city to watch recordings of human ships appearing from nowhere. Their best scientists stared at the data and admitted they could not explain how dimensional travel was even possible. Admiral Vextai, who had once mocked human technology, now found himself studying reports that filled him with dread. "How did we miss this?" he asked his advisors. "Our intelligence services found no trace of advanced technology in human space." "Because they were building it in parallel dimensions," replied Chief Scientist Kalenth. "They were developing their fleet in spaces we did not even know existed. While we believed they were weak, they were growing stronger than any of us." The Korathan War Council met in their fortress city on the war world of Garatol. These proud warriors who had conquered dozens of species now faced the terrible realization that they had made enemies of beings far more dangerous than themselves. War Speaker Grixstar, who had led the attack on New Geneva, stared at battle reports. "That made no sense. How do we fight an enemy that can remove our weapons without firing a shot?" he asked. "How do we defend against attacks that come from dimensions we cannot see?" General Kitharanek, the oldest and wisest of the Korathan leaders, spoke the truth that none of them wanted to hear. "We cannot fight them," she said grimly. "We must seek peace before they decide we are too dangerous to be allowed to exist." At the Galactic Council, the great chamber that had once been filled with laughter at human expense was now silent with fear. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in their seats, all of them thinking the same terrible thoughts. The humans they had treated like animals were now the most powerful force in known space. Ambassador Kate Miller walked into the chamber. But this time, everything was different. The aliens who had once ignored her now watched her every movement with nervous attention. The seating arrangements had been hastily changed overnight. Humanity now had a place of honor among the greatest powers in the galaxy. Kate wore the same simple uniform she had always worn, but now it seemed to carry more authority than the finest alien ceremonial dress. She moved with quiet confidence toward the speaking platform, knowing that every being in the chamber was afraid of what she might say. Admiral Xi approached her before the session began. The proud Zephyrian leader who had once spoken to her like she was a child now bowed his head respectfully. Ambassador Miller, he said in a voice that shook slightly, the Zephyrian Consortium wishes to express our regret for any misunderstandings between our peoples. We hope that humanity will consider us friends rather than enemies. Kate looked at him with eyes that showed no emotion. The people of Earth remember every insult and every act of cruelty, she said quietly. But we are not interested in revenge. We want justice and respect. Similar conversations happened throughout the chamber as alien leaders who had once been arrogant now scrambled to make peace with humanity. The Altarian Science Collective, who had refused to share life-saving medicine, suddenly offered to give Earth access to all their medical knowledge for free. Chief Researcher Kylanoth, who had called human science primitive, now begged Kate for a private meeting. We wish to learn from human dimensional research, he said with desperation in his bird-like voice. Surely we can work together for the benefit of all species. Admiral Susan Graves stood beside Brooks with a satisfied expression. The fleet now consists of 300 ships, she said. Each one incorporates technology that exists nowhere else in the known universe. The ships of Earth's dimensional fleet were marvels of engineering that would shock the galactic community. They could phase between dimensions at will, becoming invisible to all known sensors. Their weapons could strike from parallel dimensional space, bypassing any shield technology the aliens possessed. Most importantly, the fleet could appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly by stepping through dimensional space. While alien ships took days or weeks to travel between stars, human dimensional vessels could cross the same distance in minutes. The Drakmarian attack on our freighters gives us the perfect excuse, Admiral Graves continued. We can reveal our capabilities as a response to their aggression. No one will question why Earth suddenly has advanced technology. They will assume we have been hiding it for defensive purposes. Dr. Margaret Thompson, Earth's lead scientist on the Dimensional Project, explained the tactical advantages their hidden technology provided. The aliens have designed all their defenses to fight conventional three-dimensional warfare, she said. They have no countermeasures for weapons that can strike from parallel space. The alien races had grown so confident in their superiority that they had stopped innovating. Their military tactics had not changed in thousands of years because no one had ever challenged them with truly new technology. They were about to learn that this was a dangerous mistake. President Santos made the decision that would change everything. Send a formal protest to the Drakmarian Empire, she ordered. Demand reparations for the destroyed ships and the murdered crews. When they refuse or make threats, we will show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. Kate Miller delivered Earth's protest to the Galactic Council 3 days later. She stood before the assembled aliens and read the formal complaint in a voice that shook with carefully controlled anger. The Earth government demands immediate compensation for the unprovoked attack on civilian vessels, she said. We also require a public apology and the arrest of those responsible for this act of piracy. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as laughter. Aliens from dozens of species made sounds of amusement at the idea that humans could make demands of anyone. General Zito rose from his seat, his compound eyes glowing with malicious humor. The softskins dare to make demands? He buzzed loudly. Perhaps they need another lesson in their proper place. The Drakmarian Empire recognizes no authority from primitive scavengers, he continued. If Earth wishes to file complaints, they may do so through proper channels after accepting our protection posts in their territory. Admiral Vextai of the Zephyrians joined in the mockery. Perhaps humans would prefer to settle this matter through combat, he said in his cold voice. We would be happy to demonstrate the difference between real warships and human toys. Kate Miller listened to every insult and threat with a calm expression. Inside, she was counting down the minutes until these arrogant aliens learned the truth about human capabilities. On Earth, President Santos received Kate's report and nodded to Admiral Graves. Begin Operation Revelation, she said quietly. It is time to show them what we have been building. Admiral Graves smiled for the first time in months. Yes, Madam President. The galaxy is about to discover that mocking Earth was the biggest mistake they ever made. In dimensional space, invisible to all alien sensors, 300 human warships began moving toward their targets. The age of alien supremacy was about to end, and humanity's rise to power was about to begin. General Ziegler had decided that words were not enough. The Drakmarian Empire would make humanity understand their place in the galaxy through overwhelming force. He assembled the largest fleet in Drakmarian history, 200 warships armed with the most powerful weapons their empire possessed. The target was Earth itself. By attacking humanity's home world, the Drakmarians would send a message to every species in the galaxy. This was what happened to primitives who dared to make demands of their superiors. Admiral Thektar commanded the massive fleet as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. He was an ancient warrior whose armor bore the scars of 100 battles. His compound eyes glowed with satisfaction as he looked at the small blue planet that had caused so much trouble. Begin scanning for human defenses, he ordered his crew. I want to know the location of every ship and weapon platform before we begin the demonstration. The scans showed exactly what the Drakmarians expected. A handful of human ships fled in panic as the alien fleet approached. Earth's orbital defenses looked like toys compared to Drakmarian technology. The entire human military seemed no more dangerous than insects trying to fight giants. Open a channel to all frequencies, Admiral Thektar commanded. I want every species in the galaxy to witness this lesson. His image appeared on screens throughout known space. Millions of beings watched as the fearsome Drakmarian admiral prepared to destroy humanity's home world. Behold the fate of those who defy the natural order, Thektar announced in his buzzing voice. The species called human has forgotten its place. Today we remind them that primitives exist only by the mercy of their superiors. On Earth, people looked up at the sky in terror as alien warships darkened the stars. Emergency broadcasts told everyone to take shelter in underground bunkers. Cities that had stood for thousands of years prepared to become ruins. But in the secret command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, a very different mood filled the air. President Maria Santos stood surrounded by Earth's most important leaders, all of them watching screens that showed the approaching Drakmarian fleet. All dimensional ships report ready for phase transition, announced Admiral Susan Graves. Her voice was calm and professional, showing no sign of the excitement she felt inside. Director Carl Brooks checked his instruments one final time. Dimensional generators are operating at full power, he reported. The fleet can emerge into normal space at your command. President Santos looked at the faces around her. These people had worked for years to reach this moment. They had endured insults and attacks while building humanity's secret strength. Now it was time to reveal what Earth had accomplished. Admiral Graves, Santos said formally, you are authorized to begin Operation Revelation. Show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of. In the space around Mars, the human battle group under Captain Jake Sullivan continued their apparent retreat toward Earth. His ships looked damaged and desperate as they fled before the overwhelming Drakmarian force. Radio transmissions begged for mercy and pleaded for the aliens to spare. Civilian populations. Admiral Factor listened to the human panic with deep satisfaction. "Prepare orbital bombardment systems," he ordered. "We will shatter their cities, one by one, until they beg for the privilege of serving us." The Drakmarian fleet moved into attack formation around Earth, their weapons charged with enough energy to level continents. Factor prepared to give the order that would break humanity forever. Then, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, everything changed. The empty space around Earth suddenly filled with ships that seemed to materialize from nowhere. They appeared like ghosts, becoming solid, translucent one moment and fully real the next. These vessels bore human markings, but their design was unlike anything in galactic records. The ships were sleek and graceful, their hulls seeming to shift between dimensions as they moved. They appeared to be made of some strange metal that reflected light in impossible ways. Energy fields surrounded them like armor made of captured starlight. At the center of the human formation was the largest ship any of the aliens had ever seen. The USS Infinity stretched for miles through space, its size rivaling some space stations. Weapon ports along its hull glowed with power that made the stars themselves seem dim. Admiral Susan Graves stood on the bridge of the Infinity, looking at the screens that showed the Drakmarian fleet frozen in shock. She was a tall woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen the birth of humanity's greatest achievement. Today she would introduce the galaxy to Earth's true power. "Open communications to all frequencies," she ordered. "Let every species in known space hear this message." Her image appeared on screens throughout the galaxy, replacing Admiral Factor's threatening broadcast. Unlike the alien commander, Graves spoke with quiet confidence that was somehow more frightening than any threat. "This is Admiral Susan Graves of the Human Dimensional Fleet," she said in a voice that carried to every corner of civilization. "You are trespassing in sovereign human space with hostile intent. You have exactly 60 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we will demonstrate why that was a mistake." As the days passed, news of the Korathan victory spread throughout the galaxy. Other alien races watched with interest as the humans were defeated and occupied. Many of them began to think that perhaps they too could take advantage of human weakness. Zephyrian Trade Consortium started planning new restrictions on human trade routes. The Altarian Science Collective discussed limiting human access to medical technology. The Drakmarian Empire began considering their own military action against human colonies. None of them realized that every insult, every act of aggression, and every display of contempt was being carefully recorded by Earth's intelligence services. A list was being compiled of every species that had wronged humanity, and someday that list would be balanced out. But for now, Earth continued to play the role of a weak and primitive species. The hidden dimensional fleet grew stronger each day, and the secret weapons development continued in facilities that existed outside normal space. The galaxy thought it knew what humans were capable of. Soon, they would learn how wrong they were. 1 year had passed since the fall of New Geneva. The news of human defeat had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every alien race now believed they understood exactly how weak and helpless humanity really was. This belief made them bold and cruel. Ambassador Kate Miller stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, but her experience was very different from Alex Morrison's first visit. Where Alex had been ignored, Kate was actively tormented. The aliens no longer pretended to treat humans with respect. They saw no reason to hide their contempt. Kate was a strong woman in her 50s, with steel gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had been a diplomat for 20 years and had dealt with difficult people before, but nothing had prepared her for the daily humiliation she faced among the galactic powers. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium had imposed new taxes on all human goods. Any ship carrying cargo from Earth now had to pay fees that were 10 times higher than other species paid. When Kate protested, Admiral Vextai simply laughed. "Primitive species must pay for the privilege of trading with civilized ones," he said in his cold voice. "Your people should be grateful we allow you to trade at all." The Altarian Science Collective had done something even worse. They had a cure for a disease that was killing thousands of humans on the outer colonies. But they refused to share it unless Earth agreed to give them complete access to all human research. Dr. Patricia Adams, Earth's chief medical officer, had begged the Altarians for help during a public session of the council. The alien scientists, who looked like tall birds with silver feathers, had simply turned away from her. "Human science is too primitive to be worth our time," said Chief Researcher Kylanoth. "If they wish to benefit from superior knowledge, they must admit their inferiority and serve us properly." Kate had watched Dr. Adams break down in tears as thousands of people continued to die from a disease that could be easily cured. But Earth's orders were clear. Keep playing the weak victim no matter what the cost. The worst insults came from the Drakmarian Empire. These insect-like aliens had decided that humans needed constant supervision to prevent them from causing trouble. They demanded the right to build military bases in human space to keep watch over Earth's colonies. General Ziegler of the Drakmarian military was a creature that looked like a giant praying mantis with armor plating. His compound eyes glowed green as he addressed the council about the human problem. "The soft skins cannot be trusted to govern themselves," he clicked in his buzzing voice. "They destroyed their own planet's environment and fight wars over trivial resources. For the safety of civilized species, we must establish protection posts throughout their territory." When Kate politely declined this offer, General Ziegler became angry. "You refuse our generous protection?" He buzzed loudly. "Perhaps you need a reminder of what happens to species that do not cooperate." 3 days later, that reminder came. 3 human freighter ships were traveling through the Kepler system when they were intercepted by Drakmarian patrol vessels. The alien ships demanded to search the human cargo for contraband. Captain Ryan Foster commanded the destroyer Lexington, which was escorting the freighters. He was a young officer with brown hair and determined eyes. His orders were to protect human shipping, but he also had secret instructions that made his job much more complicated. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Foster of the Earth Destroyer. Lexington," he transmitted to the Drakmarian ships. "The freighters under my protection are carrying legal cargo. Please allow them to continue." The response came from Commander Grixenth, whose voice buzzed with amusement. "Humans do not give orders to the Drakmarian Empire. Stand aside while we inspect these smugglers." "I cannot allow you to board civilian vessels without proper authority," Ryan replied, though his voice sounded uncertain. "Then you have chosen to interfere with a police action," Grixenth said. "The penalty for smuggling is destruction." The Drakmarian ships opened fire without warning. Their plasma weapons tore through the 3 freighters like they were made of paper. 150 human crew members died in the explosions. Ryan's destroyer was forced to watch helplessly as the alien ships prevented any rescue attempts. "Let this be a lesson," Commander Grixenth broadcast on open channels. "Barely evolved primates should not pretend to have rights in civilized space." The message was transmitted across human space, where millions of people heard themselves called animals by alien killers. Protests erupted on every human world. Crowds gathered outside government buildings demanding that Earth's military take action against the Drakmarians. President Maria Santos faced the most difficult moment of her career. She stood before the Earth Assembly as angry representatives from every colony demanded war against the aliens who had murdered their people. "We cannot win a direct fight," she told them, though every word hurt to say. "Humanity must be patient." We must be smart. Our time will come, but it is not today. Many representatives walked out in disgust. They called her a coward and a traitor. Some colonies threatened to break away from Earth and fight on their own. But Santos held firm to the plan that would save humanity in the end in the secret bunker. Beneath the Rocky Mountains, Director Carl Brooks received reports from across the galaxy. Every act of cruelty against humans was carefully recorded. Every species that participated in humanity's humiliation was added to a growing list. The Dimensional Project is complete, he reported to President Santos during a private meeting. All systems are fully operational and ready for deployment. Tell them we refuse to surrender, Jake said calmly. But make sure it sounds scared. Lieutenant Parker looked confused, but followed orders. His voice shook as he transmitted the response to the Corathan fleet. This is the Human Defense Force. We will not abandon our people. Please reconsider your attack. On the lead Corathan ship, Grickstar listened to the human response and hissed with pleasure. They sound terrified, he told his crew. This will be even easier than we thought. Begin. The attack. The Corathan ships opened fire with plasma cannons that lit up space like artificial stars. The energy beams struck the orbital defense platforms around New Geneva and tore them apart in seconds. Pieces of metal and machinery scattered in all directions as the platforms exploded one by one. Jake watched the destruction and felt sick to his stomach. Those platforms had been home to 300 people. But he knew those people were safe. They had been evacuated days ago through secret tunnels that led to hidden bunkers deep inside asteroids. The platforms that were being destroyed were just empty shells filled with explosives to make the destruction look real. Return fire, Jake ordered. Make it look good, but remember the plan. The Liberty Bell and the Ranger fired their weapons at the Corathan ships. The human missiles and energy beams struck the alien shields and seemed to do almost nothing. The Corathan armor barely showed scorch marks where the most powerful human weapons hit. Their shields are too strong, reported the weapons officer. Our attacks are not even scratching them. This was exactly what was supposed to happen. The human weapons were programmed to operate at only 10% of their real power. The Corathans had no idea that human technology was far more advanced than it appeared. Every shot that seemed to fail was actually collecting data about Corathans. Shield frequencies and armor composition. Dr. Helen Ross sat in the colony command center deep underground. She was a small woman with brown hair and kind eyes, but today she had to play the role of a terrified administrator. As the colony's leader, she would be the one to surrender to the Corathans. Open a channel to the alien fleet, she told her. Communications officer. Her voice was carefully trained to sound weak and frightened. Please, we need to talk to them. Grickstar appeared on the main screen in the command center. His yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he looked at the human woman. You are ready to surrender? He asked in his grinding voice. Yes, Helen said, and she even managed to make her voice crack as if she was crying. Please do not hurt our people. We will do whatever you want. Just please do not destroy our homes. Smart choice, human, Grickstar said. Your ships will stand down immediately. Your colony will accept Corathan occupation. You will provide us with all your food and manufactured goods as tribute. Helen nodded quickly. Yes, of course, whatever you need. We just want our families to be safe. On the Liberty Bell, Jake received the surrender order from the colony. All ships, this is colony command, Helen's voice said over the radio. We are surrendering to avoid civilian casualties. All military vessels are ordered to withdraw immediately. Jake made his voice sound bitter and defeated. Understood, colony command. All ships, we are pulling back. Do not engage the enemy. The Liberty Bell and the Ranger turned away from the Corathan fleet and began to retreat. But as they fled, they dropped dozens of small devices that looked like pieces of debris from the destroyed defense platforms. The Korathans paid no attention to the scattered wreckage. Those devices were actually some of Earth's most advanced technology. They contained sensors that could monitor everything in the system, every radio transmission, every energy signature, every movement of the Korathan ships. The information they gathered would be sent back to Earth through quantum communicators that operated faster than light. On Earth, in a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Director Carl Brooks watched the battle through the hidden sensors. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Around him, dozens of scientists and military officers monitored the Korathan attack. "The data collection is proceeding perfectly," reported Dr. Janet Foster Brooks, chief scientist. "We now have complete information on their shield modulation, weapon frequencies, and tactical patterns." President Maria Santos stood behind Brooks, watching the screens that showed the surrender of New Geneva. She was a strong woman who had led Earth through many difficult times, but it was hard to watch human colonists surrender to alien invaders, even when she knew it was all part of a larger plan. "How long before we reveal our true capabilities?" she asked Brooks. "Soon," Brooks replied, "but not yet. Let them think they understand what humans are capable of. Let them grow confident and careless. When the time comes, their shock will be complete." In another part of the bunker, Admiral Susan Graves reviewed reports from the Dimensional Fleet. For 3 years, Earth's most advanced warships had been stationed in parallel dimensional space, growing stronger and training for the day when they would emerge to defend humanity. These ships used technology that would amaze the galactic community. They could exist partially outside normal space-time, making them invisible to conventional sensors. Their weapons could strike across dimensional barriers, hitting targets in normal space while remaining safely hidden in parallel dimensions. Admiral Graves was a woman who had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. She had commanded the first experimental dimensional ship and had overseen the construction of the entire hidden fleet. 300 vessels now waited in dimensional space, ready to emerge when Earth needed them most. "The Korathans have taken the bait perfectly," she told her staff. "Their scans of our ships during the battle show they believe our technology is exactly as primitive as we want them to think." Back at New Geneva, the Korathan occupation began immediately. Grickstar soldiers landed on the colony and began taking inventory of everything valuable. They treated the human colonists like slaves, ordering them around and taking whatever they wanted. But the Korathans did not know that every word they spoke was being recorded. Every piece of technology they used was being studied. Every tactical decision they made was being analyzed by the best military minds on Earth. That the human colonists played their parts perfectly. They acted frightened and submissive, providing the Korathans with food and supplies without complaint. None of the aliens suspected that these same humans were secretly gathering intelligence that would be used against them. Helen Ross met with Grickstar in the colony's main administration building. The Korathan war speaker towered over her, his scales dark green in the artificial light. "Your people learn quickly," he told her with satisfaction. "Perhaps humans are not completely hopeless. If you continue to obey, we may allow your colony to survive." "Thank you for your mercy," Helen said, bowing her head. Inside, she was thinking about the message she would send to Earth that night through a hidden quantum transmitter. The Korathans would never find it because it was built into the colony's water recycling system. The massive space station hung in the void between two burning suns. It was bigger than any city on Earth, with metal walls that stretched for miles in every direction. This was the home of the Galactic Council, where the most powerful alien races in the galaxy came together to make decisions about the universe. Inside the main chamber, Hundreds of different creatures sat in rows of seats that rose up toward a domed ceiling covered in stars. Some aliens were tall and thin with blue, skin that sparkled like crystals. Others looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth and yellow eyes. There were beings made of what looked like living metal, and others that seemed to be made of pure energy floating in glass containers. Commander Alex Morrison sat alone in a small section marked for humans. He was the first person from Earth to ever attend one of these meetings. The other aliens barely looked at him. When they did notice him, they pointed and whispered to each other, like he was some kind of strange animal in a zoo. Alex wore his best military uniform, but compared to the fancy clothes and natural beauty of the aliens around him, he felt very plain. His brown hair was cut short and neat. His skin was pale from spending most of his life on spaceships. He was just an ordinary human in a room full of beings who thought they were gods. Dr. Lisa Carter sat next to Alex. She was Earth's best scientist, who studied alien life. Her job was to learn everything she could about these creatures and report back to Earth. She had brought a small computer to take notes, but the aliens found this very funny. They had technology that could record thoughts directly from their minds. Out at the front of the chamber, a tall blue alien stood up to speak. This was Admiral Vextai of the Zephyrian fleet. His skin was dark blue like the deep ocean and crystal. Growth stuck out from his head like a crown. When he spoke, his voice was smooth and cold. Today we discuss the newest race to discover space travel, Admiral Vextai said. His words were translated into thousands of languages by machines in the walls. The species calls itself human, from a small planet they call Earth. A three-dimensional image appeared in the air above the chamber. It showed Earth spinning slowly, looking small and blue and very alone. Many of the aliens made sounds that Alex guessed were laughter. Our scans show that humans have very basic technology, the Admiral continued. They use simple fusion power for their ships. Their weapons are crude metal projectiles that barely scratch modern armor. Their fastest ships take months to travel between stars. More laughter filled the chamber. Alex kept his face calm, but inside he was angry. These aliens were talking about his people, like they were children playing with toys. A giant lizard-like creature stood up in another section. This was Grickstar, a war speaker for the Corathan race. His scales were dark green, and his eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. The humans are weak, Grickstar said with a hiss. Their bodies are soft. They die if the air gets too hot or too cold. They live for less than 100 years. How can such fragile creatures survive in space? They cannot, said another alien. This one looked like it was made of silver metal. With glowing red eyes, we have studied their history. They fight wars with each other over scraps of land. They poison their own planet with waste. They are not ready to join civilized society. Alex wanted to stand up and defend his people, but he knew that would only make things worse. Instead, he listened carefully to every word. He made mental notes about which aliens seemed most hostile and which ones might be willing to give humans a chance. Dr. Carter was writing notes as fast as she could. She had studied these alien races for years, but seeing them in person was different. The Zephyrians moved with smooth grace, like dancers. The Corathans were clearly built for war, with thick muscles and sharp claws. There were dozens of other species, each one more advanced than humanity in different ways. Admiral Vestai brought up another image. This one showed human spaceships, small, boxy vessels that looked clumsy compared to the sleek alien designs around them. The humans have only a few dozen ships capable of interstellar travel, he said. Their largest vessel carries fewer than 1,000 crew members. Their weapons are kinetic projectiles, powered by chemical explosives. By our standards, They are still throwing rocks at each other. The chamber erupted in what Alex was sure was laughter. Some aliens made high-pitched whistling sounds. Others produced deep rumbling noises. A few flashed different colors like living rainbows. Grickstar stood up again. "I propose we give the humans a test," he said. "Let them govern one of the empty worlds in the outer rim. We will watch to see if they can handle even basic civilization." "An excellent idea," said Admiral Vextai. "We should start them with something simple. Perhaps a small agricultural world where they can practice growing food without destroying everything." "They will need supervision, of course," added another alien. "We cannot let them make important decisions on their own. They might hurt themselves." Alex felt his hands clench into fists under the table. These creatures were talking about his people like they were pets who needed training. Every word was an insult, but he had to sit there and take it with a smile. Finally, Admiral Vextai looked down at the human section. "Commander Morrison," he said in a voice that sounded like he was talking to a small child, "would your people be interested in this generous offer? We are willing to give you a chance to prove that humans can be civilized." Alex stood up slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to look at him. He felt very small and very alone, but he kept his voice steady and strong. "Thank you for your generous offer," he said. "The people of Earth value independence and the right to make our own choices. We hope to earn our place in the galaxy through our own efforts, not through charity from others." The silence that followed was broken by more alien laughter. Some of them were actually pointing at him now, like he had just said something incredibly stupid. "How amusing," said Admiral Vextai. "The humans think they can survive on their own. How wonderfully naive." Alex sat back down, his face burning with embarrassment and anger. But he had one more thing to do. While the aliens continued their meeting, he carefully reached into his pocket and pressed a small button on a device that looked like an ordinary pen. The device sent a quantum signal across space faster than light itself. The message traveled through dimensions that the aliens in this chamber did not even know existed. It reached Earth in less than a second, carrying a simple code that would change everything. The message was short: Protocol 7 confirmed. They have no idea what we're capable of. On Earth, in a secret facility buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, a man named Director Carl Brooks received the message and smiled. The aliens thought humans were weak and primitive. They had no idea that Earth's best scientists had been working on technology that would shock the entire galaxy soon. Very soon, these arrogant aliens would learn that it was dangerous to mock the people of Earth. 3 months had passed since the meeting at the Galactic Council. The Corothan hegemony had grown tired of waiting to teach the humans a lesson. War Speaker Grickstar commanded a battle group of 12 warships as they approached the human colony of New Geneva. The colony orbited a yellow star at the edge of human space. It was home to 50,000 people who had left Earth to build a new life among the stars. They grew food and manufactured simple goods to trade with other human worlds. To the Corothans, it seemed like the perfect target for a demonstration of power. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the human frigate, Liberty Bell. He was a man in his 40s with gray hair and steady hands. His ship was one of only 2 military vessels protecting New Geneva. The other was a smaller patrol boat called the Ranger. Against 12 Corythan warships, they seemed hopelessly outmatched. "Sir, the alien ships are demanding we surrender," reported Lieutenant Sam Archer from the communications station. "They say they will destroy the colony if we resist." Jake looked at the screen showing the Corythan fleet. Their ships were dark and angular, covered in armor plating and weapon ports. Each one was twice the size of his frigate and carried enough firepower to level a city. But Jake had his orders from Earth. Command, and those orders were very specific.